Good evening, viewers. You're watching To The Point. I'm Preeti Choudhry. By the time you woke up this morning, you would have woken up to the news as well that over 100 locations in the national capital alone were raided by the special cell of the Delhi police associated with the news portal NewsClick. Many journalists were questioned, their houses raided, some of them taken into the police station for further questioning. What we do the very little that we're given to understand, and all of this is source-based, is that it does seem the anti-terror law, UAPA, has been invoked against the news portal NewsClick and also against the journalists associated with NewsClick, prompting us to ask the question, are these journalists soft targets, are these intimidation tactics, or are they propagandists, is what the government alleges.
Raids at over 100 locations in the national capital region. The special cell of the Delhi police swooped down on offices and homes of several journalists, staff and other individuals associated with the NewsClick. A case was filed on the 17th of August under the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. Raids based on inputs by the Enforcement Directorate shared with the Delhi Police Special Cell. The NewsClick portal accused of receiving funds from China for anti-India propaganda. Some journalists linked to NewsClick were brought to the Special Cell office and questioned regarding the Shaheen Bagh farmer protest and protests in the northeast. They were also questioned about their foreign travel and funding.
देखिए, मुझे जस्टिफाई करने की जरूरत नहीं है। अगर किसी ने गलत किया है तो उसके ऊपर जांच एजेंसियां काम करती हैं। जांच एजेंसियां स्वतंत्र हैं, वो अपनी कार्रवाई नियमों को देखकर करती हैं।
Police seized several electronic devices including laptops and mobile phones and took data dumps of hard disks from the raided properties. An investigation by the Enforcement Directorate revealed an alleged fraudulent infusion of foreign funds to a tune of 38.05 crore rupees during a short span of 3 years.
Basically, Communist Party of China, the person who was involved in this entire deal is Newell Roy Singham. He has 4 non-profits in USA and he is a tech billionaire living in Shanghai. Through Singham, 38 crore rupees traveled to NewsClick. Out of these 38 crore rupees, this becomes extremely important. Out of 38 crore rupees, 9 crore came through foreign direct investment via inward remittances. Apart from 9 crore rupees, almost 28 crore rupees also traveled, and according to NewsClick, it was in exchange of some of the services which they provided. But when Enforcement Directorate raided their premises, when they got hold of certain documents in this entire investigation, what they got to know, there was no logical explanation of that 38 crore rupees. Out of 38 crore rupees, again, extremely important, 21 lakh rupees went to Gautam Navlakha. He is also a shareholder, and along with Gautam Navlakha, there were certain individuals, certain journalists who also got that money.
The Congress rallied around these journalists who have been raided as part of the NewsClick investigation. The Congress party accused the government of cracking down on free press. The Editors Guild of India expressed its deep concern over these raids. It urged the government not to use the draconian criminal laws as tools for press intimidation. NewsClick, on its part, had earlier said it would respond to allegations in courts of law. With Munish Pandey in Delhi, Bureau Report, India Today.
What we are going to do is we'll get down to the political fight later because, of course, you have the Congress coming in stating that the government's gotten scared of the caste census. That's been what their official line is. Therefore, trying to create, a moment right now by attacking journalists in NewsClick. But let's get down to it on what is a very grave question that needs to be asked, because right now, and I want to bring into this conversation our consulting editor Rajdeep Sardesai, who's also a member of the News Guild of India, a scathing a letter which has been written, a statement given out by the News Guild suggesting that everything needs to be above board, that if there is evidence, then it needs to be presented above board before action of what we've seen was taken today. Rajdeep, what do you make? Because there is now a debate which seems to suggest that journalists always soft targets, number one. Intimidation tactics, because the journalists who have been raided, yes, they've been associated with the NewsClick, but they've not been terribly kind. They've been very scathing of reportage when it comes down to the government. So a lot of people are also associating it with intimidation tactics. However, the government's very clear, or even the Delhi Police Special says, whatever source-made information that we have, is that these were propagandists.
Preeti, 2 or 3 points. First, the Editors Guild of India statement clearly says that while we appreciate that due process of law must be followed, the fact is you cannot use, or you should not be using draconian laws to criminally intimidate journalists. So we're drawing a distinction. No one is saying that the journalists are above the law, far from it. But at the same time, you've got to be very clear that when you go and raid and detain journalists, you're not going through a process of a witch hunt, criminally using criminal laws like UAPA, Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, to then target and detain journalists.
Has it been the first time that an anti-terror law has been used against journalists in this country?
We had Siddiq Kapan,
yes,
who was going to cover what happened in Hathras, and he spent more than 2 years in jail. But Preeti, what stands out here is that you are saying that this organization, NewsClick, was funded through money routed through an overseas Chinese or an American with Chinese links and the Communist Party of India of China links. If you can prove that, and you've had a money laundering case that's already been in place for the last couple of years, it's not that this happened today, please put the information out in public. A. B. More seriously, what have you gone and done? You've gone and raided and detained journalists who have not a direct role in the operations of NewsClick. You've got graphic designers, you've got consultants. Some of them 70-year-old consultants that who are paid not very much, over 2-3 years. You put out a figure, or the government sources are putting out figures that 40 lakhs was paid. The 40 lakhs has been paid over 3 years. That's 36 months. You're effectively paying them 1 lakh plus per month for videos that they put out. The point is that you seem to be at the moment engaging in, dare I say, a fishing expedition or a witch hunt that could send a chilling effect right down the line. If junior employees working for NewsClick are going to be detained simply because you believe that NewsClick is getting money through, is getting Chinese funds, it is setting a very dangerous precedent. God forbid tomorrow a major media organization was caught in the crosshairs of the Enforcement Directorate or indeed the special cell of the Delhi Police. Are you going to go and detain the smallest employees in that organization who are simply there to do a job? I think we've got to step back, therefore, and look at the wider picture. This is sending out completely the wrong message at a time when India is among the lowest when it comes to press freedom index. So there are serious questions that the government must answer. It cannot be always seen as business as usual. You want to follow the process of law, please do it. But please do it on hard information that you've got. And please put that information out once you've got it in the public domain. You've had 2 years. This is a 2021 case that in 2023, you're now converting from a PMLA to a more draconian, dangerous
anti-terror law.
UAP.
Yes, anti-terror law. But Rajdeep, do you also find it strange somewhere down the line that most are quoting the New York Times here, because this was a piece, and what we've seen, at least the action, the optics of it all, come at the back of a report that the New York Times carried, which on many occasions, there have been multiple reports that the New York Times has carried and very publicly have been derided by the Bharatiya Janata Party itself. So many times in our own studios.
Yeah, that's one of the ironies of this. The fact, Preeti, is that this is a case, as I said, which was first filed in 2021. Right. So it's not as if the New York Times article is only of a couple of months ago, of July of 2023. So you already had an ongoing investigation. The New York Times has given you some more ammunition, possibly. By all means, investigate whatever you have, but do it in a manner that doesn't smack, to my mind, of simply intimidating journalists, waking them up early morning, going to, across Delhi and other places, picking up journalists, bringing them, spending, and being asked, from what I gather, they've been asked the same questions again and again. Are you an employee? How are you being paid? I mean,
Soft targets?
All of this should have been done. What were you doing over the last 2 years? You had a PMLA ongoing investigation. Why didn't you act on it? Of course, I think journalists are soft targets. I genuinely believe journalists are very soft targets, particularly, dare I say, those who come from small news portals. They do not have the security that those perhaps in larger organizations have. You can well say that the Editors Guild is doing little except issuing statements.
How do you know we are saying that?
No, because you see, there is this cynical view that, why didn't you speak out? Let me tell you one thing today, because I've been seeing it on social media. The Editors Guild of India also stood up when Arnab Goswami, for example, was picked up by the Uddhav Thackeray government in Maharashtra a couple of years ago, even though Mr. Goswami had walked out of the Editors Guild. I want viewers to know this. The Editors Guild of India stood by him. None of these individuals, though, have stood by other fellow journalists when they are detained and targeted. Every journalist, I believe, should at least be given the benefit of the doubt. You have evidence against them, throw them in the cling. What happened to Siddique Kappan? Where is the evidence till today? The man spent 2.5 years in jail under UAPA, denied bail repeatedly. Supreme Court eventually stepped in. And we still don't know what exactly was the nature of Siddique Kappan's offense, besides saying that he was someone who was linked to the PFI, which at that time was not a banned organization. So I think these are serious questions that need to be answered by someone.
Well, all right. That impassioned note made by Rajdeep Sardesai also came from a conversation that he and I were having prior to the show. Appreciate you joining us, Rajdeep. Rajdeep takes the debate forward at 9 p.m. Let's cut across right now to our political debate. Tom Wadakan, there's a direct question there. If there is evidence, bring it up on board. Why is everything shrouded in secrecy?
Preeti, there's no secrecy about it. This is an investigation. This is a work in progress. The cell has the Delhi police cell has confiscated certain electronic equipment, laptops, telephone, their smartphones, and what have you. Now,
Mr. Wadakan, when I say secrecy, I talk about the sheer fact. Sir, you have invoked an anti-terror law on journalists. I'm sure you must have heard the conversation we were talking, Rajdeep and I were having earlier. But away from all of that, it's not about the conversation Rajdeep and I were having, but coming back to the point. You invoked anti-terror law against journalists, some of them consultants, some of them not directly linked to NewsClick, without any evidence on board.
Well, Preeti, let me tell you, when an investigation is at a serious point, and the charges are known to the organization, and there is a situation where these people might leave the country, or the other situations where they may alert certain elements. Now, you had very highly educated people who were arrested by Delhi police. You never questioned us on this, because the Delhi police has been working on something and there is information which they do not want to share in public. You just wait, have patience. Everything will come out because there's a judicial process you have to answer. And so to be
But I'll tell you why. I want to bring in your counterpart, Mr. Mangalam, into this conversation. But Mr. Wadakan, I'll tell you why, where you say, have patience. Sir, please complete.
You see, the distinction between activists and journalists, I've been dealing with journalists and I've had a very brilliant time with them. I've spoken to them. I've been with them during my tenure, and I have had no problem with them. But there are certain elements who create this activism. And when a company which is founded for 3 years gets 38 crores coming to them, and 29 crores comes in because they're exporting something. God knows what they're exporting. Electricians are paid 1.5 crores as charges. Now, we are not questioning where and why, how they got this money. But then who are the people who are giving them the money? Prabir.
So how do you, I'll ask you a question as I bring in your counterpart here. I'll ask you a question, sir, as I bring you in counterpart. I'll also like to make a point. You talk about the Delhi police. One needs to have faith. Of course, one needs to have faith in the policing system of the country, sir. But one also needs to question the policing system in the country. And I'll give you an example.
Please do.
How many number of cases, sir, if you remember, from the Delhi, hear me out, sir, from the Delhi riots, individuals slapped with the UAPA. Today, the Delhi police has zero shred of evidence against them. But I'll come back now to the figures that you gave out. Where have you got those figures, sir? Because till now, there is no official indication that this is the figure, this is the charges, this is why these journalists were running a propaganda organization.
I have not talked about propaganda. When you have articles coming in and the dictation comes that this is the position you have to take on China and this is the position that you need to work out, this is the map you need to put out, you are questioning my not just my freedom of expression, my security of my country. When maps come down and these maps are made official, you're creating a situation, a war-like situation in the northeast. You're provoking the border situation. When you create a
So which of the journalists have tweeted, which of the journalists have included a distorted map of India in the articles that they've given me? You belted out figures in terms of numbers that were given to NewsClick. Where are these numbers, sir? We are trying very hard to get a grip on these numbers.
You will get a good grip of the number if you have an open mind on the subject. Neville Roy Singham is the main operator. He's the guy who sends what? He sends messages to this particular portal telling them this is the position to be taken. This is the course of... you expect a Chinese agent to dictate to our people what they should write, what is the map to be put out, what they have done and not done is not the issue. These are recipients. These are...
So I just wanted to ask you. So I want to bring in Mr. Mangalam into this conversation, but what I asked you was you talk about a distorted map being put in. Which of these journalists put that distorted map out? And I have a very open mind, sir. Therefore, inquisitions by a journalist, humor that at least, because you gave us some figures. Officially, where are these figures? Because we'd like to see them. If there is a story which is credible, which is backed by evidence, by all means, go ahead and do what you're doing. Everyone is a nationalist in this country, sir.
No,
everyone wants to safeguard the position of India. But I just want to bring in Mr. Mangalam into...
Rajdeep, in your program a few minutes back, mentioned the figures. I'm not bringing any figures which your channel doesn't know. He said that this is the kind of accusations that
So these are source-based figures.
These figures, where did Rajdeep
these
get
are
it?
source-based figures. That's all I want to tell you. Source-based figures. Okay, I just want to bring in, can I just bring in Mr. Mangalam into this conversation? Mr. Mangalam, at the back of what the Congress is also doing, a flurry of tweets. It's a little insensitive, do you not reckon, to say that the government's gotten scared and running scared at the back of the caste census, therefore trying to, ward away attention? It's a bizarre claim.
No, this government, I don't think it's bizarre at all, because I think this government is an expert at changing the conversation whenever they find topics that are too uncomfortable to deal with. And the only propagandists here are the government. I think Rajdeep talked about the Global Press Freedom Index, where we've fallen to 161st out of 180 countries in 2023. We were 150th in 2022. Now let's get to the UAPA. Each year, and I'll give this, Mr. Badakkan needs to hear some facts here, which is that each year between 2014 and 2020, 985 cases under UAPA were registered, while the number of pending cases rose by 14% every year. On an average, 41% of the cases only were sent for trial, of which only 4.5% were completed. If it's not the draconian provisions of PMLA, this government chooses to use the draconian pre-trial detention provisions of the UAPA. He's talking about having patience. The people who actually should talk to are Siddiq Kappan, who were in jail for 2.5 years, patiently waiting for any sort of proof that still hasn't come. Like Umar Khalid, who's also been in jail, patiently waiting when no proof has come. This government uses PMLA under ED and UAPA to enforce pretrial detention and make the process the punishment. They've been doing it consistently with journalists. In the last 9 years, they've deliberately persecuted and suppressed the media by deploying investigative agencies like to suppress the BBC, News Laundry, Dainik Bhaskar, Bharat Samachar, Kashmir Wala, The Wire, the list goes on and on and on. Even a small publication like The Caravan has a criminal charge against it. They actually drove Amnesty India out of the country with using the ED as its powers, and all because Amnesty India was reporting on the violence, the Delhi police's involvement in the riots that happened in Delhi, as well as the atrocities against the people of Kashmir. So this is a repeated pattern. It's there for everyone to see. And the China angle is just a bogey. Just last month, Rajiv Chandrasekhar, the IT minister, said that we're welcoming investments from the Chinese. Whichever company from China wants to come and invest in India can. PM CARES has crores of investment from Chinese companies, and they're not subject to any audit. Nobody's asking where that source of money is or where it's going to. The External Affairs Minister's son runs a foundation that has got money from the Chinese 3 times. Nobody's auditing them. Nobody's asking questions of them. So this double standards is just used to malign people and show no proof whatsoever, no burden of proof in order to malign them.
Gentlemen, I've just run terribly short of time today. I apologize to the both of you. We're going to dip into a break a little early. But thank you for taking the time out and joining us. We're going to keep the conversation going. We're going to leave you with the figures in terms of where India stands on the Press Freedom Index of India. We're going to leave you with these figures. Just spare a thought on where we stand. A quick break. Up next, Rahul Kanwal.
You are watching India Today, powered by Finest, Be Sustainable Change, a B&P Group company.
June 23rd, 1985. The ill-fated Air India Boeing 747 Kanishka with 329 passengers on board plunged into the sea off the Irish coast after a mid-air blast in the early hours. A bomb placed in a suitcase had exploded, killing all the passengers. 260 of them were Canadian citizens. Only 131 bodies were recovered from the sea. Fast forward to 2023. Amid rising diplomatic tensions between Ottawa and New Delhi, the deadly bombing is back in the news. India Today visited the Air India Flight 182 Memorial in Toronto. The memorial is visited by hundreds of people every day.
Now it tells you on here all the names of the people from it.
These visitors believe that it is important for the next generation to know and learn about these incidents.
New Brunswick.
That we shouldn't forget this tragedy, and in light of the recent news, it's more important that I educate my children to know about our past.
Significant in the sense it remembers the tragedy that these people innocently were involved in. Okay. And it was horrific at the time.
Earlier, India Today also spoke to a victim of the bombing who lost his family in the attack.
You know, it was not, the tapes were not erased by mistake or lost. They were wiped clean.
Yes.
The evidence was all there. They test fired the bomb 2 weeks before the actual bomb. So let's understand that this is a state that has looked the other way. And they cannot now point fingers at India 38 years later and say, you know, this happened and this guy is our citizen. Because it was all their citizens who killed our people. My family. I know so many other families. I know so many other victims' families, I mean, who have bonded with me over these years. So that is a shocker for me.
The Canadian courts acquitted all the suspects at different points in time, citing factual errors and credibility issues in the evidence gathered. Even as India-Canada relations hit the rock bottom, victims still await justice by the Canadian authorities. With Anisha Mathur in Canada, Bureau Report, India Today.
You are watching India Today, powered by Finest, Be Sustainable Change, a B&P Group company.
Okay, I'm going to take some time playing on this particular setup. Kind of interesting. I want to see whether it can actually replace a PlayStation console-like setup. That's what Apple promises. We'll know in the coming weeks and months. Another thing that I usually spend a lot of time on is YouTube. There's a lot of cool things you can do, but I honestly think if you were to do a survey about what content or what type of content Indians were watching, they'd say it was tech today across the multiverse, and especially when we do put out our content on YouTube. But that's just me saying it, and I have vested interests. I think it'll be very important to hear what YouTube India has to say in the upcoming special report.
The fact is, Shan, that all these content creators are here is the reason, why India loves watching video content on YouTube. But tell me, what has made news in India? What do Indians love to watch?
I'm probably stating the obvious over here, Karishma, but Indians love to watch video. And we think one of those reasons is because of our deep-rooted history in cinema and in music. But we also think it's because video as a format transcends literary barriers. You don't need to be able to read and write English or Hindi in order to be able to consume video. So we're seeing that video is very often the first port of call for Indians who are seeking out information or entertainment. The other thing that has changed is that technology has now made it easy for anyone to create content. And so that's blurring the lines between who a viewer is and who a creator is. And that is breathing new life into existing content genres that have been on YouTube for a long time. Gaming, cooking, tech, beauty, for example. But it's also leading to the creation of new content genres. One is an interest in a revival in the interest in culture. So we have poetry and Hindi Shairi, which is becoming a big community. We see communities forming around science, general knowledge, facts, motivation. And of course, learning has been an evergreen area for us where people come to YouTube to learn about academic content, vocational content, as well as hobby-related content. But the other thing that's very interesting is languages and the impact that that's playing. Today, you can find content and music on YouTube, but not just in English, Hindi, and other major languages, but across, for example, in music, Haryanvi, Bhojpuri, or Punjabi. And if you're looking for content in specific dialects from Kottayam or Rajamundry or Madurai, it's all available on YouTube today. And in fact, we recently did a study with Oxford Economics, which found that 80% of users believe that they can easily find content in their preferred language on YouTube.
Well, like I said at the start of the show, this particular episode is packed to the brim with quality content, just like a Mumbai local. If you didn't get that reference, well, I take it back. But what I'm trying to tell you is there's so much more in the second half of the show. So I'll see you on the other side of a commercial break.
You are watching India Today, powered by Finest, Be Sustainable Change, a B&P Group company.
Presented by RP Sanjeev Goenka Group, Growing Legacies.
Co-presented by Century Laminates by Manish Malhotra, fashion for your furniture.
Co-presented by Macho Hint, Bade Aaram Se.
Co-powered by PolicyBazaar.com, Har family hogi insured. Co-powered by The Bold Look of Kohler. UBI, good people to bank with. Kirloskar.
Good evening and welcome. You're watching a special edition of the News Track, and I'm broadcasting tonight from the venue of the India Today Mumbai Conclave. We're getting set to bring to you action-packed conversations all through tomorrow and day after all across